Hi, Sally Foley-Lewis here with another fantastic video interview in the Spark Self-Leadership series. And it's an absolute honor and a privilege to be having a conversation with Mark Middleton, who is the global CEO of Icon Group. Welcome to the conversation, Mark.
Thank you, Sally. Pleasure to talk to you. Thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, so what's Icon Group? Tell us that first and foremost.
Well, look, Icon Group's now Australia's biggest provider of private cancer care. We're an integrated cancer care provider, chemotherapy, radiation oncology, pharmacy services and chemotherapy compounding. So we're a very big company now, from humble beginnings in Queensland to who we are now on a national platform, but also an ever-growing reach into Asia with facilities in Singapore, Hong Kong, Vietnam, New Zealand, and mainland China. So very big company.
Wow. Well, congratulations. And being a fellow Queenslander, yay. So I love a good success story from our own homegrown patch. So going from strength to strength.
Indeed, we are. And I'll let you know a little secret. Sally, I've been in Queensland for 14 years, but I'm actually Victorian. So I hope that doesn't dampen your enthusiasm.
Where's the hang up button right now? No, just kidding. Just kidding. Okay, you can be an honorary Queenslander. So
yeah. Very proud though of our Queensland heritage.
Thank you. Cool. Hey, we're here to talk about self-leadership. So I am really interested because I've been seeing you on the social media, particularly on LinkedIn, and being a very visible corporate leader, for want of a better term, and a very visible senior leader. And so I really have admired the messages that you put out there, you know, on behalf of not just Icon Group and some of the way you work there, but also general leadership messages as well. And which is why I reached out and asked you to have this conversation. What's your definition or your take on self-leadership?
Well, for me, self-leadership is it's how you live your life. It's the frameworks that you have within your own life about why do you choose to do the things you do, how do you pursue them, and how ultimately do you judge your success or lack thereof in particular pursuits. So for me, it's everything that you do. It's how you behave. It's how you strive for goals. It's how you encourage others and those around you to also strive for goals. So it's your behaviours, and I class that as both professionally and personally. It's values. It's multifaceted, but it's also those things that get you out of bed in the morning. That's self-leadership. Unless someone's turfing you out of bed in the morning, you've got to get yourself out of bed in the morning. And that's self-leadership, because you're getting up to do something, to do good, to achieve goals. What drives you to do that, and how do you build frameworks around everything that you do? To me, that's self-leadership.
Yeah. I think we're on the same page there. I totally agree. It's around our values drive our behaviors, and then they are reinforced with the motivators that go along with it. And they are quite, interrelated in that regard. So, and I think you tapped into a really good point. It's not just those fundamental things, but then it's about creating the framework in which to operate. So, it's not always quite simple, but it's about understanding there's a driver, and then there's also structure that you need too. So thank you for that. What impact does self-leadership have on aspects like confidence and influence and courage as a leader?
Well, they have an enormous influence on those things. If you think about it, confidence is not necessarily something we're all born with. You get confidence from experience and from proving yourself and knowing, hey, I'm really good at that. That's where my strengths lie. That's what builds confidence. That allows you to feel very confident going into a particular activity or a particular environment or a particular pursuit. So I also would say self-leadership is when you are a leader and you're thinking about the people around you, about projecting confidence, even if you may not be confident. That is really important.
I'm a big believer,
really big believer in that. And particularly, I'm sure we'll talk about the global pandemic. Your people want strength and confidence. How do you present that, even if on the inside that may not be how you're feeling? So, look, absolutely important. Courage, I see it the same way. It's about experience, backing yourself around decisions and making hard decisions that, may or may not be popular as well. How do you have the courage to do that, to lead not only yourself, but the people who look to you for leadership through tough times. And again, it's about having that framework of self-leadership. This is how I'm going to behave during this particular event. This is the framework and the values that I have that will guide me through to make a decision that will take great courage. So, so I think we covered confidence, courage, and our last one was
influence.
Influence. Well, you want to be able to set an example, and that's about self-leadership, because certainly from my perspective, being the CEO of a global company, people look to you for leadership, and it's all the time. You know, I think sometimes we think we're not on show. I can guarantee we are on show every single minute of every single day. And if I slam the door to my office, someone sees that, you know, and someone will think, Mark slammed his door, so that's okay for me to slam my door. No, it's not. Mark shouldn't have done that. That's about influence. And how do we make sure that we're positive role models and influencing people in a positive way? I mean, you know, there's an old saying, team's only as good as its leader. And then there's one that the other side of the coin is fish right from the top. You get it wrong, your influence is huge. I'm a really, really big believer, and I tell my team this all the time, do not underestimate the responsibility of your leadership. You just can't. People will look to you for leadership, and even more so during tough times.
Absolutely. And that point about being, when you're always on, I totally agree with. And, you know, we are a role model. As leaders, we're role models, and we are role modeling constantly. And it's quite creepy, might be the wrong word, but how much people pay attention when we don't think they are. And our people see everything. They see more than we realize they see.
Well, you know, I've had my wardrobe's been critiqued for the last 20 years, you know, or perhaps look, I'm very fortunate to have a wonderful partner who helps me with my dress sense. But I always make the joke with my wife, Susan, that, you know, I've got to look good because people will critique me. What was Mark wearing today? Did he get dressed in the dark? All of those things on a more trivial note, but you're absolutely right.
Yeah, totally. Because it's all about how good you look. I love that. But which I think, even though I know you were making a joke, people still pay attention, and that stuff does come up, which is, you know, you sort of sit there some days and go, that's not the most important piece about this right now. And that's where our confidence and our influence goes. All right, let's shift beyond the surface level and go deeper with whatever we need to go with. And I think also your point about being okay with making the tough decisions. I remember having a boss who years ago didn't like them. And I don't think that was any secret. Not many people liked that person at all. But if you got all of us employees in a room, we would all agree that when they made a decision and they communicated that decision, it was clear, there was no misunderstanding, and there was consistency. And so we respected that, even though this person had no personality whatsoever and we really struggled to have a relationship. One of the things that we really relied on and really valued was that strong, consistent decision-making. Even when the decision was against whatever we wanted, at least that communication was there, the reason why it was made that way, the consistency in that. And I think that's, you know, when I look back at that person with a little bit more maturity and a little bit more wrinkles on my face, you know, that leader actually had a pretty solid level of self-leadership.
No, I agree. And I think consistency is a really important word. People want to know what they're going to get from a leader. It's, you know, they actually want you to be predictable. You know, I may not agree with that decision, but I know there will be a decision made. It'll be well thought through and covered all bases. And I think that's exactly what you've just described, Sally. And you know, sometimes you put the personality aside and say, well, okay, that's the personality of the person. This decision making is actually really sound. And you know what? I get it because I've had it explained to me. Don't necessarily agree with it, but now I'm on board because I get it. Consistency is so important. People want to know, hey, what to expect from their leader, because the important thing is if someone has to come to you one day with a really difficult conversation, they're more likely to do that if they know the response will be predictable, even if it's one of you know, anger or disappointment or any of those more, you know, confronting emotions. They want to know what the response will be, and they want consistency. Because if they get that, they're more likely to come and talk to you about things that maybe aren't that comfortable to discuss, and that is really important.
Yeah, and I think the extending that a bit further and going into that, really into the heart of that self-leadership definition, is that our consistency comes from actually being really clear about our values and our motivators. When we're a bit wishy-washy in who we are and what we stand for, then our ability to kind of not stand strong in a decision or be swayed too easily, or not feel confident and courageous enough to speak out about, this is the decision, whether you like it or not. I know it's not favorable for everyone. All those sorts of elements. When we're not clear about our values and our motivators, then I think that's where I can see a link between how much more difficult it is to be consistent.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I think it's a really, really good point. It's around that, the values, the things that are important to you. Because again, we're talking about self-leadership. It's the framework. What's the framework you make those difficult decisions within? If you get that right, but if that framework changes all the time, or changes with, change of direction of the wind, you've got a problem, and you've also going to have a problem with people following your leadership.
Yes, yeah. It's, you want them to come to work and be as productive as they can be. They don't need to also add on top of that the layer of, what am I getting today, or who am I getting today? Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. So just thinking about an event that may have happened, and it may be COVID, because let's face it, it's a pretty prominent event in our world. Where maybe you've been thrown and you've needed to reignite your own self-leadership, or any sort of, whether it's COVID or some other event. I'd love to, whatever you're happy to share, love to know from you what it took to reignite your self-leadership. What did you learn from that? What are some of the lessons you could share from that experience?
Yeah, look, I think I've got a really great example. So I make it a habit every day I'm in head office in Brisbane to say good morning to every single person in the office. And, it's a habit for me. And I told our team when I started this role, if they got sick of it, bad luck, I'm never going to stop. So 17th of March 2020 made the very difficult decision that head office in Brisbane and our head office in Melbourne would work from home, so that everyone was sent home, and we did it very, very quickly as a global pandemic approached. I decided that I would continue to come to the office every single day. And I decided that because I wanted people, and it also became a bit of an obsession actually, I wanted people to know the lights were on, I'm here, and when we're all back together, we'll all come back together. And it was very powerful symbolically for me. So I decided to do that. So I'd come into the office very early every morning, and I was driving to the office the next day, and I thought, I'm going to email everyone good morning, because that'll give everyone a bit of a surprise and maybe a bit of a lift. And I did it, and people loved it. They responded. Then I thought, well, I'm going to do this every morning.
Oh.
Careful what you wish for, because it went on for a long time. And then I'm going to do it for the whole global team, 3,000 people, China, Hong Kong, Singapore, Australia, New Zealand. So I did that every single day for 62 days. And the emails became lengthier and about different topics and all those sorts of things. And I'd be sitting in my office at home and, often in the dark thinking, what am I going to talk about tomorrow with the team? Because people are connecting and interacting on this, and it actually reinvigorated so many things. So I'm going to talk about this book that I read 15 years ago that's in the bookcase. I'm going to get it out, and then I'm going to talk about what I learned from this movie 10 years ago. And actually, people kept saying to me, how are you writing these emails every day? I actually just loved it because we covered so much ground: family, inspiration. I called the series The Inspiration to Lead, because that's what it gave me, the inspiration to lead, because you're sending out these things that I'd forgotten about. My love of some obscure science fiction TV series from when I was a kid, and you'd think that's not going to connect with anyone at Icon. 40 responses later who also loved that, that sort of thing. And then, you're thinking, how's that going to translate to the team in China? I sent a note out about one of my favourite heavy metal bands, which is Iron Maiden.
Oh.
And
my brother would love you. Yes.
one of my Chinese doctors sent back a picture of her husband's cupboard, which was filled with Iron Maiden CDs and DVDs in Beijing. So there you go. You think these things aren't going to connect, and they did. So look, I guess what I'm saying is it just reinvigorated me. And even when times got really, really tough, and I'm sitting in the office at home thinking, how are we going to keep our people safe during this? How are we going to stay open and deliver care to 2.5 million patients annually around the world that we currently do? How are we going to keep doing this? Because this is getting really rough. And then I'd sit there and I think, well, first step is I'm going to connect with everyone tomorrow morning. We're going to be together. We're going to share the stories and share the interactions, and we'll go from there. So 62 days. And again, if people were getting sick of it, I said, bad luck, I'm going to do it until we don't need to do it anymore. So look, that for me, it was just this, it became a ritual every single day. And then I had to decide when we would stop, and when I did. But it's something that I shared with the team, and we connected in a way that I couldn't have possibly imagined. I mean, some of the things shared with me, which obviously will always remain private,
yes,
were things that I've never been more cognizant of what it meant to be a leader than during that time. And I'm really proud. Everyone talks about Mark responded to every single email that he got, and I did. One day I responded to 400 emails.
Wow.
And I did, because I asked people, we had a bit of a joke. I said, let's upset the IT team, and can you crash my email this morning with the responses of saying good morning? And, gave everyone something to focus on for that day. And so I guess that's a very long answer to a short question.
No,
So,
I love it. I love it. I think
it was just that really, really special moment that we sometimes get in leadership careers, and I'll never forget that.
Yeah, and what I love is that the diehards who connected with the exact show and Iron Maiden, you're going to ramp up a little bit of engagement with those guys, but it's the ripple effect as well, because even just you sharing Iron Maiden, I've gone straight to my childhood of arguing with my brother to turn Iron Maiden down so I could do my homework, and every other heavy metal, Public Image Limited, Sex Pistols, you name it. It was all through our house. Yeah, all through our neighborhood. So it doesn't even have to be the exact thing, but what you've done is that ripple effect of engagement, and you've been human, and you've been you, and you've shared a piece of you that that may never, who knows, it may never have been triggered otherwise. Maybe it would have, we don't know, but that's kind of a silver lining from the pandemic, that the team globally get to go, here's a little bit more of the onion layer back of Mark.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And I'm not sure how many global CEOs get to share with their team their love for Iron Maiden. But I'm happy to, because I love Iron Maiden and have since I was a little kid. So, but you're absolutely right. You don't get the opportunity to share those things very often. And look, sometimes I thought to myself, am I sharing too much? I talked about my own upbringing, my family at times, and am I sharing? You know what? I thought, no, this is important. And from the responses I got back, and people who'd had similar experiences, and family tragedies, all those sorts of things. No, I'm not sharing too much. This is real connection, and it's really important right now.
Absolutely, and they get to be reminded that you're human. And I think one of the things that, as a coach and a facilitator, and when I go into organizations and work with a lot of middle managers, a lot of the time the conversation is around, I just get treated like I'm not human. And so conversations with senior leaders and conversations with the operational staff is around remembering that this manager is a human, and you sharing that opens the door up for people to feel safe as well. And I think that's a really, really essential part of leadership. But let's go back to self-leadership. If you weren't clear about who you were, and if you weren't feeling as though you weren't strong enough in yourself, in your values and your beliefs, and the importance of what you do and how you show up as a person, then you may never have shared that. And then the roll-on effect and the positive ripple effect of that would never have come through. And I also think one of the things that is that you'll never know the extent to which you've made an impact. Because there'll be people across, how many people did you say? A couple of thousand, did you say?
3,000.
Sorry, say that again.
3,000 people.
So you got 3,000 people. There'll be somewhere, there's obviously going to be a cohort in that 3,000 that you will never hear from about this, but they've reaped the benefit of it.
Yeah, well, I hope so. I hope so, because it's a very, very important part of, not only, and I think that's the important thing, I was trying to support our people through COVID. It actually got me through COVID too, because it's ritual. How am I going to lead today? Every single morning, a reset. We'll meet every challenge that comes our way today. Then we'll sit in the office at home in the dark and maybe have a whiskey and think about how we repeat again. We regroup tomorrow together and we repeat. I think we could spend a few hours talking about rituals and how important they are to leadership, but it became very, very important.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. How do you... So let's talk about your people then. And obviously one of the things that help fire up and keep people going is that email, and shifting from saying hello to emailing hello. But in other situations, how do you fire up the self-leadership in your people?
Well, I think firstly, set an example. I believe wholeheartedly in ICON's mission. It's been my whole career's mission, and that's to deliver the best care possible to as many people as possible, as close to home as possible. And I've lived and breathed that. My entire career has been in oncology, and a huge part of that's about been delivering it to regional Australia, and now we're fortunate enough to deliver into regional areas in other countries. So I believe in that mission. It is my mission, and pardon the use of the word in the current circumstances, but that's infectious. People, if the leader believes in it, and it's real, it's my passion, it's what I want to do. I want to help as many people as we can. Now, along the way, I want that to flow through everyone, that this is really, really good work that you're doing. This is important. Read the feedback from that patient and their family. Read the feedback from that community about how important this is. So that's the first step. That's how we fire people up. And, I talked earlier about why I get out of bed in the morning. That's why our people get out of bed in the morning. You can impact and touch so many people's lives, so many communities' lives. So that's really important. But what I also want people to understand is, look at the examples we have. Look, I'm a radiation therapist by background.
Right.
My part of the ICON story starts at St Andrew's Hospital in the car park in Toowoomba. That's our first radiation oncology facility. I led that facility, and now I lead a global company, 14 years later. So look at the examples that we can see, and I want people to understand that our mission not only helps people, but it provides opportunity for great careers and opportunities that if you grab them, the world is your oyster. I spoke at an International Women's Day conference this morning, and I spoke about some of the stories of our female leaders and where they started with the organisation and where they are now. It's about opportunity. People want opportunity. They want to be able to grow professionally and personally, but they also want to be able to do that within the framework of where their life is at that particular moment.
Yes.
And I think that's really, really interesting. We all go through stages in our careers. You're starting a family, you're having a family, you're raising a family. That shifts focus, it shifts all those things, but you still want to be able to grab opportunity that works for you during those times. And I think that's really important. So when it comes to firing up self-leadership in our people, it's mission, and then it's this mission will provide you with amazing opportunities, and the rest is up to you. And if I can set that example, because I actually am an example of that. I was our first ever site manager in Toowoomba in 2007, and now I lead the entire company. So that for me is self-leadership. You've also got to provide other opportunities. Okay, here's this professional development opportunity. I think you should do this. I'd like you to do this. I mean, I've asked our teams before, I want a list of all the conferences our people speak at, all the scientific papers they publish, all of the postgraduate study that's going on amongst our group. And it is just amazing the depth and breadth, because people want to grow. And to do all of those things I've just described, that actually takes self-leadership.
Absolutely.
No one's pushing you. No one's going to spoon feed you. I'm going to write this scientific paper for you and get it published for you. That's self-leadership, and that's that motivation, self-motivation that you need to bring to the table. But there's got to be a goal. And I guess what I'm really saying, Sally, that goal is opportunity, and wow, are we going to do some good work along the way?
Yeah, and that mission in action. So, being able to be, being able to do the good work and like you said, get that feedback, which I think is a self-fulfilling prophecy of it getting better and better and better. Because that, not everyone needs external feedback, but it certainly is kind of nice when you get it to help motivate to keep going and doing more and being that lifelong learner, whether it's through the writing of papers or doing extra study. And I totally agree with everything you said about how we can fire up our self-leadership, and love that you went through and audited where people are at with their professional and personal development and the studies they're doing, the papers they're writing. I think that would be a fantastic showcase of the smarts that's within the Icon Group. So that'd be huge to look at that. So yeah, well done. Yeah. So I just want to be respectful of time. So I've got one more question for you. And that is, what's the one thing you wish you knew about self-leadership way back when you first stepped into any sort of leadership role?
Look, it's an interesting question. I've actually thought about this one before. I wish I had the confidence to be bolder in certain things. I look back on our start and the company that I founded that's now obviously part of Icon. And I think about the things we could have done, knowing what I know now and being, I guess, having the confidence in my own abilities now to lead that. So, I wish I'd been bolder in some of that decision making. And look, to be honest, we were still pretty bold, so maybe it was a good thing. But you look back now and why didn't we do that? We've done it so many times now, and I can remember one particular instance about opening a cancer centre at a certain hospital, which we always stalled on and didn't do for various reasons. And now it's one of the most successful cancer centres, certainly in Queensland, if not in Australia now. And I thought, why didn't we do that 10 years earlier? And it was certain things that I just wasn't bold enough to grab the reins of and just drive. And, and look, that's one specific instance. But, look, hindsight's 2020. You look back now and, gee, imagine if you knew then what you know now. But, that I guess that's the leadership journey, isn't it? So, if you came back to the self-leadership, it's about having confidence in your abilities at that particular moment in time. And those things take time. So look, that's probably if I was to talk to myself 15 years ago, be bolder.
Be bolder. I like it. I like it a lot. Thank you so much. Any last words you want to share before we wrap this up?
Well, look, thank you, Sally, for the opportunity to talk to you and share some of my thoughts. I think that probably I'll just come back to something I said earlier in the conversation. It's about the responsibility of leadership. And the responsibility of leadership to create leaders around you and to bring other people through on the leadership journey. We've just got to do that because there's plenty of examples of bad leadership around us. Yes. And I think we have a responsibility as senior leaders to develop those around us and look, identify the talent, look for people who, naturally are strong leaders already, and how do we enhance that? And then look to the people who may not be natural leaders, but they have it. How do we guide those people? And for me, that's an important part of my role is how do I continue to develop the next generation of leaders at Icon? Because ultimately, two groups of people will benefit from that. The people who really need our help and the people who are part of the team. And that ultimately, that just comes back to our mission. So that's what we must do.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, there's no point getting towards the last 10 years of your career as the global CEO and then going, all right, who's going to take over? You know, we should be getting everyone ready, or like you said, the people you can identify ready all the way along that process. And I think, again, it comes back to being, strong in your own self-leadership, in that you're confident. It's not that, well, you kind of do want them better than you. You want the next person to be even better than you. And you've got to have the confidence in yourself to know that that's what you want and not be threatened by it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely gold. So thank you for that, Mark. I really appreciate it. I think it's a really strong message.
Thank you, Sally, and it was great to chat.
Thank you. And that's another excellent conversation with another superb senior leader. It's so nice to be able to pick the brains of Mark Middleton, the global CEO for Icon Group. Catch us again on another Spark Self-Leadership series, and bye for now.